Oh, hi, Drew.
Hey, Paul, how we doing? You surviving or what's going on?
Yeah. Everyone's alive.
Okay.
But today was a weird day.
Today was a very, very weird day. So, man, how do we kick off our 40th podcast extravaganza / infection watch? Like, how do you want to do this?
Oh, well, I don't know. I just kind of want to. I kind of just want to share the reasons why my day was weird.
Okay.
Then maybe you can do the same. I think some of us, it's the same. Like, today, let's see, Star Trek got canceled. So that's a big sad, but again, understandable. We have decided to do, for at least my company, the IT department is doing a mandatory work at home day tomorrow. We just got an email, literally 5 minutes ago, that my whole office just shutting down. Everyone's going to be working from home until April 3rd. Yeah, April 3rd. School for my kids has been canceled for 3 weeks. Well, schools are going to be closed. I don't know whether they'll be getting any sort of education via online or anything like that. Yeah.
I have an update on that regard, but continue.
Okay. And the first of what I assume to be many of my concerts have been canceled.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So, yeah. So it's a weird day. I can't remember a day quite so weird in a very long time. Yeah. How about you? How's your life going?
Well, okay, so let's take a step back here. So obviously, folks, we're talking about all of this coronavirus, COVID-19 explosion that is happening. It is a very real thing. It's impacting our lives, and it's starting to get, I don't know if it's starting to get scary, but it's starting to get weird. I'm not overly, I'm concerned. I am concerned. I'm not necessarily concerned for my safety, but I am concerned for my routine and how it's going to impact my day-to-day life.
Yeah. It's gonna be weird. So, I just have a bunch of questions for you, because obviously your job involves, not all the travel in the world, but more than none, I would say more than most people. Your day to day probably also involves a lot more going into buildings you've never been in before.
Yeah, so
going to other people's offices, which I imagine that's just stopped. Question?
Yes and no. So in my role, I support different customers differently. Some customers are very, very much remote and have been remote since I started working with them. Okay. And I have also spoken to a lot of customers via phone on a one-off kind of basis that just need help with something, and those are almost universally remote. There have been exceptions to that rule where I've had to hop on a plane at the last minute to go save the day. Okay. But by and large, most of my interaction with customers is remote. Now, I do have some dedicated customers that I have here in town, and it's kind of a blend where sometimes they want me to come down and discuss something, in person to an audience of people, and sometimes they just want me to send emails and respond to them and things like that. Now, I can tell you that, from my company's perspective, depending on your role and where you're located, they have pretty much told everybody just stay at home. Right. So at the main office out in Washington, they have basically told everybody, just, listen, work from home. Just go home, work from home. We have the technology. We have entire groups of people that don't live in the state of Washington that can work from home. We can handle you working from home. But along the same lines, for people like me who are very customer focused and customer centric, they have told us not to stop traveling. So yeah, it is very situational. Now, I will say that over the past week, a lot of customers have told us they don't want us there. because they're either going full-time remote or they're restricting access to buildings to keep the head count in certain areas at a minimum.
Right, yeah.
So really it has been customer decisions and not so much my organization's decision not to do that. I expect that as we continue to see state and local governments getting more involved and basically telling people, hey, we're shutting a bunch of services down, that might change. As a matter of fact, this evening I was out to dinner. So all week I was visiting a very lovely company in Springfield, Ohio, all week. So I was basically driving to Springfield back and forth all week. And I was in pretty close proximity to a person who travels a lot. You know, I was basically there to shadow and to assist and basically help him out while he was here. And he's a person who travels a lot. And, you know, he's in airports a lot. He's on airplanes a lot. He's in hotels a lot. He's interacting with a lot of people. We're shaking a lot of hands. We're doing a lot of things. We're doing all the things you're not supposed to be doing, in other words.
Exactly, yeah.
And, you know, am I going to get sick? You know, I think that at this point, I'm not really worried about getting sick because I think everybody's going to get sick. I think that at this point we need to resign ourselves that regardless of what you do and whether you're working from home or working remote, your chances in coming in contact with somebody that has been exposed or is actively infected is probably going to be pretty high. And I'm not saying that to cause alarm or be alarmist or anything like that. I think this is a very real thing, and I think we're going to get sick. Do I think we're all going to die? No. But I think that we're probably going to get sick. And I think it's going to impact our daily lives, and it's going to be weird for a few weeks. Now, to go back to what you were saying, right? So for us, we're still doing all the things, and like I'm on the hook for several customer things right now. Those have all moved to remote. My customers have basically told me, you know what, we're going to make these meetings remote. So all of those things have moved remote, which is just fine by me because that means I just don't have to take off my sweatpants and I can do all my work from my office at home, and that's totally fine. And I work for obviously a very large company with a great set of, you know, a great infrastructure to facilitate this kind of thing. I worry about the smaller companies that maybe don't have work at home policy, like official work at home policies, and maybe don't have the infrastructure to stretch to make that happen. Now in Ohio, obviously, the big announcement today, and we're recording this on March 12th, which is a Thursday, the governor of the great state of Ohio basically said, I'm closing all the schools. You know, we're basically taking 3 weeks and we're shutting everything down. Now, my wife is a teacher. Your wife's a teacher.
Yep.
Now, I can tell you that from what I understand in talking to my wife, they have basically given the direction of, hey, we're going to continue these kids' education over the next 3 weeks. They only have one day to figure how they're going to do that because Monday is the first day that they're going to be working from home. But at least in my wife's district, they're going to be handing kids devices and they're supposed to try to teach them while they're home. I don't know how successful that's going to be, both at a technical and at a like objective level, but I don't know. What is your wife saying?
Well, they're not exact. I think they're going to send like a bunch of Chromebooks home with her students as well. And like my son, like where he goes to school, like all the kids have a Chromebook, but like my daughter's elementary, like they don't. Like there is they don't have enough devices to send home with everybody. So that's going to be tough for the elementary schools. In my district, they have canceled school tomorrow in an attempt to give the teachers like any chance in hell of getting something put together. As far as I know, my wife still has to work and teachers' kids tomorrow and also figure out how to teach them the next, 3 weeks remotely. So that'll be interesting. But then again, like, I just can't imagine a lot of kids being sent to school tomorrow, even if they have school. I think the panic is done set in. And, yeah. So,
well, so from what I understand, at least in my wife's district, the kids are to report tomorrow.
Yep. It was the same thing with my wife's district as well. But where my kids go to school, they're already closing the schools for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be weird. And the other thing my wife said that was interesting is that throughout the next 3 weeks, the kids will be at home, but it sounds like the teachers might still have to report and conduct their teaching from school.
Okay.
which is a little interesting, right?
Yeah, that is a little interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's definitely kind of strange. Yeah. So, for me, as far as my work goes, not much has changed other than some deliveries that I had that I was going to have to visit some customers for. But for right now, everything is kind of shifting remote. Now, I guess I'm curious. I don't know how much has changed since I've been there. At least when I was working with you, there was kind of this unofficial work at home policy thing where, like, if you needed to work at home every once in a while, it was kind of fine. Obviously you're pretty close to the, DevOps and, infrastructure side of the house over there. How prepared are you guys?
I think as prepared as we're going to get. Especially since we're kind of in the middle of, acquiring another company. So we've suddenly had, like 3 offices in different states. We've been pushing, like basically saying, hey, like it's okay to work from home. We spent a lot of money on, upgrading all of our conference rooms to be more kind of like to support remote workers and have meetings and have nice cameras and stuff. We're totally bought in on the Teams lifestyle.
Thank you, by the way.
Yep. And the thing is, Teams, it's great. It's great. In fact, actually, it's going to be interesting because tomorrow was supposed to be like a big department, like IT meeting, and we're going to run that whole meeting through Teams. So we're going to have about 120 people on one Teams meeting.
The devil, you say?
Yeah. Which I mean, it's without Teams, it would be. I mean, obviously, there's other tools like Slack and stuff, but the way that, like, it's when you're running Office 365 and you're running Outlook and you're using Teams, it is just so easy when you make a meeting to just hit that, Teams meeting button. And, with the equipment we have in all of our conference room, you literally just go up. There's a tablet kind of on the desk. You say, join the meeting. The TV turns on. The camera turns on. It just all works. So I think with Teams, we're going to be able to survive. I think the only real kind of question we have is whether our VPN is going to be able to handle the sudden, amount of users. But our infrastructure team they're on top of it, and they're making sure that they have enough bandwidth and everything's configured properly. And so, I'm sure there's going to be some bumps in the road. This is like the first time we've even remotely even had to think about anything like this. But we've been taking the right steps in the right, the steps in the right direction to support more remote work and mobile users. And honestly, this is going to be a big test. And hopefully at the end of the day, our company, and I think a lot of companies are going to be more remote friendly just because they're going to have to learn how to do it.
Yeah. I wonder how just prepared companies are. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, tomorrow could be a really weird day as well, as, all of IT is going to be out of the office, and then Monday, everybody's going to be out of the office. So, there's going to be some bumps, but, our guys in infrastructure really spent a lot of time today thinking about and getting prepared for this. So hopefully it goes fine. Now, have you done any hoarding, stocking of food, running to the store at the last minute, purchasing oddly large amounts of toilet paper?
I haven't. And it's funny because while I was on site with this customer this week, I went to lunch today, and the place we ate lunch was close to a Walmart. And after we got done eating lunch, I'm like, you know what? It's been a long week, and we're kind of on the tail end of this engagement, and I just want a Red Bull. So we popped over to Walmart, and we walked into the store, and it wasn't super busy in there. Like, I expected Walmart to be super busy. Now, I don't know exactly if this was, like, before or after the governor's announcement today, but we walked in, and there were lots of food on the shelves. There was, like, lots of bottled water, and at first it didn't appear that anything was out of the ordinary, and we were walking like around the store, and I'm like, I just want to walk around and see like if anything's out,
Yeah.
And as soon as we got to the toilet paper aisle, the shelves were completely bare. Like Kleenex, paper towels, and toilet paper were completely gone. Like everything else in the store was fine. Like they had like instant meals and frozen meals and veggies and like food. They had food, but they didn't have any toilet paper. And it's funny. So this must have been before the announcement. And then, I drove back to Springfield, and then I was getting some texts from a friend of ours who I was hoping to meet up for dinner, and he canceled on us, and I guess he was going to the store, and he informed me like, wow, this place is crazy, they don't have anything, and like the lines were out, and some people were like at Costco and trying to get things. I think part of that is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction today, but I'm betting that it gets better by the weekend, would be my hunch.
Yeah, I hope so. I think a lot of especially people with kids are like, oh my crap, my kids are going to be home for 3 weeks. Like, I better make sure they have stuff to eat.
I think that's part of it. I definitely feel that that's part of it. I definitely feel that that's a big part of it, and I'm sure that it will get better. Probably by the weekend, because we're big weekend shoppers. Yeah. So I guess we'll see what happens. I think that by the weekend things will have calmed down enough, and we'll be able to get the supplies that we need. And it feels like there's a lot of big things that are kind of shutting down. But at the same time, I went out to dinner tonight with my buddy who was in town working with me this week, and we went out to a restaurant here in Dublin, and it was fine. There were people there. It didn't seem to impact them at all. And, for a Thursday night, it was pretty crowded, and the waiters all had, disposable gloves on, and we actually had plastic straws again. It was interesting, but I didn't feel like they were going to be closed or things were going to shut down. So, and I'm not trying to poo-poo it, because I think it's a real thing. I'm not one of those people that thinks this is some kind of hoax or it's not a big deal, because it is a big deal. It is going to be weird for a few weeks, but I'm not really feeling panicked. I don't know. Where are you at?
I think we're in a slightly different situation because of my son and his immunosuppressants and stuff. So
that's what I was going to ask, because full disclosure, after we got done recording last week's episode, we talked kind of briefly about that and what that meant for you.
Yeah.
So I guess that is a slightly different situation.
Yeah, we've been the wife and I have been stopping at stores for the last few days on our way home, and just picking up things we need and see if stuff's in stock. Luckily, we had bought toilet paper before the craziness happened, so we're pretty good with that. But just, buying food to make sure, we're basically prepared that if we don't leave the house for, 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to be fine. Which I think is pretty much our plan right now, except for, my wife having to go to school, and there's a couple things I need to run out and do this weekend. But I think we're pretty loaded to bear. We've got lots. We're ready. We've got plenty of food. We're unable to hunker down and just stay inside, and hopefully this whole thing blows over.
Yeah, we've got plenty of food. Granted, if we can't get food for a week, I'm gonna be subsisting on protein bars and old pasta. Yeah. But I'm not worried about starving. We have Brita filters for the water. I don't think they're going to shut off anybody's water anytime soon.
No.
So yeah, it's definitely weird. I've never, in the 40 years on this earth, I've lived through some weird things. I've lived through 9/11, and I've lived through weird things in my community, like when my elementary school caught on fire, and I've been in weird situations, and I don't know, man. This definitely feels really surreal.
Yeah, it is. It's just, the only day, it was obviously a different vibe, but the only day I can remember being so different and off was 9/11. When that happened, the whole world just stopped. This feels... at least people are kind of taking it seriously.
Right.
So which is good. And I'm a news junkie. I read too much. And, what I basically keep reading is all these precautions, closing the schools, canceling concerts, not letting people go and see sporting events, right? It's not that they're believe they're going to keep people from getting the virus, or really even reduce the number of people who do. It's what they basically call flattening the curve. So it's, instead of having a bunch of people getting sick rapidly all at once and having more people sick than hospitals and infrastructure can handle. It's making that nice, a nice gentle hump, right? So people are getting sick probably for a longer period of time, but not as many are sick at once. So the hospitals can actually handle it, the support systems in place for, less fortunate people can deal with all of that as well. So that meant, I think like what you said, like, I think at some point, like almost everybody's probably going to get sick, but the goal is not to have everyone get sick at the same time.
Right. And when I say everybody's going to get sick, I guess what I really mean to say is I think everybody is going to contract this virus. Like, I think that,
yeah.
And I almost feel like with something with this kind of global scale, right, I think we could put the best containment measures in place, and I still think that it would be a pretty widespread thing because it seems to be a very infectious disease or virus or whatever the right word is. I definitely think things like containment and communication and things could have been probably handled better across the board. But at the same time, like I just sort of resign myself to the fact that, yeah, I'm probably going to contract this. I'm probably going to have flu-like symptoms for a couple days. I don't consider myself to be in an at-risk population because I'm 40. I'm pretty healthy for my age, I think. I'm probably healthier than most at 40. I don't have any pre-existing conditions that I think that this thing would particularly wreck me, and I can say the same for my wife. The people that I'm most kind of worried for are people who have, like your son, like some other pre-existing or autoimmune condition that might complicate things. And I'm worried about my dad because he has some respiratory problems. And so I'm concerned about him, right? Like, I'm not really so much worried about me. I am worried for other people. But my wife made the comment to me tonight that she can't believe that I'm not taking this more seriously. And I tried to explain to her, I'm like, well, I am taking it seriously. I think that it is a big deal. I'm just trying not to remain, how do I say this? I'm not trying to appear completely unhinged and like this is the end of the world, because I think cooler heads do need to prevail, and we need to look at things rationally. We need to follow instructions. We need to do what we can to flatten the curve, like you said. And if things get really bad, hey, I've got a few guns. I'm going to be okay.
Well, let's talk about something a little bit more exciting.
Yeah.
Should we change the topic?
I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say before we polish that one out? Because how do you not talk about it?
I know. Like, at first I thought like we should just avoid it, but
no,
dude, I had to get it off. Like, today was weird. It was a weird day.
Well, it was. Yeah. This whole week has been especially weird for me because when I'm on site with a customer and presenting and having to pay attention and everything, like I can't surf the web and I can't talk to people on our teams and I can't talk to people on Twitter. So like, I'm so disconnected, and then like I hop in the car at like 4:00 and I turn on NPR and you start to catch up with like the events of the day, and it's like, holy crap. And it hits you all at once because there's been an entire news cycle while you've been stuck in a conference room, right? So like I would probably feel completely different if I was able to like observe it and react to it in real time. But this week I wasn't in a position to do that, so it's like it's very startling to do that.
Yeah, like for example, like when the governor spoke right around 2:30 or so, like everybody on my floor had just we turned it on television and everyone was just silent watching him talk. Like, and I can't remember a time where like people were that glued to the news, just like as like to a person. Every single person stopped working and stood up and was watching him speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just It
is.
It's a weird day. It's going to get weirder, I think.
I think you're right. I think it's probably going to get weirder. I guess the thing I don't really know is like, where does it go from here? Because like, at this point, it's in what they call the community spread kind of portion of this thing, mm-hmm. and we're seeing a bunch of sporting events get canceled. I think that canceling them is better than playing without fans, because I just think that would be weird.
Yeah, and also like I was reading because like, but the NBA was the first sports franchise to kind of shut down the league, I guess, because a couple of their players got sick. And I was reading an article, I believe it was on the Athletic. Basically, someone had done the math saying that if one player in the NBA is exposed within 5 days, you have possible contamination of every NBA team because of the travel and how much they, how much they play. Like 5 days, like that's not a lot.
I mean,
so you have to protect the players, you have to protect the medical staff, the coaches, the people working at the arena.
Well, with basketball, the goal is to literally take the thing that someone else is holding. So,
you're not right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a pretty high risk scenario. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard not to think about it. It does weigh on me a little bit. And the other thing I think we need to say is that from the positions that you and I occupy, we're kind of still able to do our jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like our companies aren't closing, right? I don't think either of us are going to lose our jobs here. But, for people in a gig economy or people who work at, sporting events or things that are relying on people to be out and about instead of quarantining, that's a different story for those people. I think there's definitely going to be some hardship for people like that, and I don't know what the answer is, but that's the scary part, I think.
I keep thinking of all these kids who are on like free or reduced lunch at schools, where like their meal they get at school is like their primary meal of the day, like.
So
so I'm not sure how I'm sure schools are trying to figure that out and get these kids meals and stuff. But
so what I heard from my wife was that their district is going to try to identify some of those at-risk kids and still try to deliver them food.
Yeah, I would imagine most districts will try to do that, and volunteers will come out to help deliver those meals and stuff. And but
the ultimate, man, I think there's a lot of different ways this thing can go. I think that, if you set aside all the rhetoric or anything, I think everybody realizes that we're sort of all in this together, and I'm hoping that we see more humanity than not humanity.
Yeah.
But we'll see. And of course, I'm bummed about big events being canceled. I'm bummed about Star Trek. I'm bummed about some other conferences. Like, I have a lot of friends, like, for instance, like MVP Summit. Like, MVP Summit has gone remote only. And they're still having it technically, but there's a lot of people who had booked travel with airlines from overseas that can't get refunds and hotels. Mm-hmm. And, there's, I have a lot of friends that are still very, very active in speaking communities, and they're in a tough spot because they've made an investment in themselves, right, to attend these things and share their knowledge. And that's a hardship. So, it's tough. I think the biggest kind of shock to our collective systems is probably happening right now. And short of like a virus mutation that causes us to all bleed out of our eyes, like I think that the worst is kind of over, is kind of how I'm choosing to look at it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And just know that dogs can't get it. So there it is.
Yes.
We will still have dogs.
Well, listen, you're right, and we're making light of it, but if my dog had a chance of getting it,
yeah, exactly.
I would be pretty nerved up. I'd be pretty nerved up.
I'd have plastic on the windows.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm taking time off. Yeah. And like, and to cap this all off, like, obviously I work for a very, very large company, and they've got so many resources at their disposal. They've been great to us. Like I said, they haven't told us to stop traveling yet. I suspect that may change, like I said, as more governments and local communities kind of shutter things up. But all of our kind of cancellations have come at our customers' discretion, and our company's been really good about it. And our boss has basically said, "Listen, if you don't feel comfortable, you don't do it," and that's they have our back.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's move on. So that covers topics 1 and 2 of episode 40. Episode 40, by the way.
40. I know.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
This podcast is about to be older than me.
Oh. So you bought something, didn't you?
I did. So I broke down and I did replace my AirPods. I thought I would bring that back to the show. Listen, my AirPods are about the closest thing to magic that I own. Well,
they are amazing.
But they are amazing. Now you have to understand, I'm pretty knuckle deep in the Apple ecosystem. I use a MacBook Pro all day. I've got iPhones. I've got the watch. Like, the AirPods are a natural extension of my kind of quote-unquote Apple lifestyle. But here's the thing. The fact that I can switch seamlessly, okay, maybe not pretty much seamlessly, between having my AirPods tied to my computer, which allows me to not only listen to music, but also take conference calls and have pretty good audio quality while I do it, to switching to my phone that if I need to take a call on the road or I'm out and about and I need to listen to a Teams meeting or a phone call or listen to a YouTube video or what have you, like my AirPods are a pretty big part of my workflow. They really are, because the alternative for me is to use my big boy headphones and my boom mic at my desk, which is great for when I'm doing a big technical presentation, But for onesie-twosie little phone calls or listening to large conference calls where I'm not necessarily speaking and it gives me the freedom to move around a little bit and not be attached to anything, I went about a week without having that, where I'm like, yeah, I got to replace these. So the special lady and I were at Target last weekend, and I told myself, I was like, okay, look, I know they sell AirPods at Target. If they have the AirPods Pro, I'll probably buy them. But thank goodness they didn't. I just got the regular.
Okay.
I just got the regular AirPods. They're totally fine for me. They work great. I'm sure the in-ear ones and the noise canceling of the higher end Pros are fine. I'm sure, but I can tell you that I've used the regular AirPods Generation 2 now for a while, and this is technically my third set of AirPods, because I had a first gen, a second gen that I broke during an unfortunate cleaning incident, and this other replacement pair now, and they're great. They're great for so many use cases.
Yeah, dude, I love mine. I use mine more and more now. Well, so I like music, obviously. And at work, I usually rock. I have a desktop DAC amp combo thing that I use, and I have a nice pair of multi-$100 magnetic planar headphones. But at the crappy desk I have right now, I don't have room for that. So I'm rocking my AirPods all the time for music. I too love the ability to switch the back and forth between my phone and my Mac if I want to take a phone call or connect it to my Mac to do it like a Zoom meeting. I love that I can just do that without having to unpair or repair or push a button or anything. It works pretty seamlessly. I like being able to take one AirPod out and it just pauses. To me, that's still magical. I put them in when I'm doing chores around the house. So I'm responsible for unloading and loading the dishwasher. So whenever time I do that, I have my AirPods in my pocket. I pop them in. I listen to, 10, 15 minutes of a podcast, and then put them back in my pocket and go back to my day. It's just nice to know that I always have a high quality pair of headphones in my pocket all the time.
Yeah, no, and they're great. I mean, I use them everywhere in my house, and I like having them for when I'm in an airport, or out and about. One of the things that I've really come to appreciate that, that my work and the way I do my work gives me the flexibility to do is if I don't have any afternoon meetings, I can go walk around the block, or I can go out and take an hour at lunch and sit somewhere and have a bowl of soup and listen to things on my AirPods. I thought that, I was in no rush to replace them, and it's not stopping me from doing my job in any way, shape, or form by not having them. But again, the workflow that I have, they are perfect for me, and I can't think of better wireless headphones except maybe the AirPods Pro, or maybe one of those Sony wireless ones that are noise canceling that I hear good things about. But the thing that I guess I don't give enough credit to is just how compact they are. And they fit right in your ear. They don't hurt my ears, and they're great. Now, I don't work out in them, so I don't have
right.
I don't have some of the requirements that some people do. But for everyday kind of carry in my own house, they're in my my charger's in my pocket. And if I'm, if there's a noon all hands meeting, I can dial in. I can do other things while I'm listening and not be tied to a physical location, and they're perfect for that. They're perfect, and they have perfectly good sound for listening to music too.
Yeah, no, the audio quality is great. I mean, they are probably my favorite Apple device that I have, and I have a lot of Apple devices.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, how's that 16-inch?
And, it is unremarkable in a good way. It's not causing me any problems. It's consistent. It just works. Because like I use my computer, like I'm a bring your own device guy at work, so I use my computer at work. So I want it to be reliable and not have any problems. And this one's just been solid. It's, it's fast. It's, yeah. And the keyboard's nice. The keyboard. I'm actually like not afraid to put my laptop on my lap and type on it anymore. So yeah, turns out.
Yeah, I mean, when we get back to a place as a society where we're allowed to go out and touch things again, I definitely want to go to an Apple store and like bang on a keyboard.
Yeah, they're nice.
Yeah, so I'm back on my AirPods. I couldn't be happier. I'm surprised I made it as long as I did.
Me too.
Yeah. But, I was like, I just need them back. I just need it. And it got pretty desperate there for a while where I was just wearing the one that worked.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know. At first I was like, I can make this work. And then like I went to the bathroom during a conference call and I saw the one in, one out. And I'm like, look at you. Look at you.
Oh, excuse me. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just broke down and said, I'm going to do it. So. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and we talked about keyboards not too long ago, but I did go ahead and swap out my my keyboard in my basement for a 10 keyless keyboard.
Okay. And
I don't know if I like it.
You don't know.
I don't know. Okay. All right. All right. So, all right. Let me explain this. So I always record the podcast in my basement on my water cooled computer that is not my Mac, and I am a gamer. I make no apologies, and I like having a nice mechanical keyboard in the basement. And I had a full size keyboard that was red switches. They were the Cherry MX Reds, and I'm sure you've probably heard during this podcast one of us typing. I know that you can sometimes hear my typing on my keyboard, and I know that you can hear Paul typing.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't buy a code keyboard like we talked about a couple episodes ago, but I did buy a higher end mechanical keyboard that has a metal base plate instead of plastic, so it's got some heft.
Yeah.
I'm also using linear red switches, so they're Cherry MX switches still. They're reds, but they're linear. So they have a slightly different tactile feel from what you would normally have from the red switches. The typing on it is very good. I just don't know if the key angle or there's something about this thing that I'm just not used to yet. And granted, this is the first night that I've used it, and I haven't played any games yet. But like, I don't know what to do with my right hand, because my right hand normally rests on my keyboard like off to the right near the enter key, and like it's just. I don't know. I don't know where my hands are supposed to go.
So your hand should be in one of two places. Either should be on your home row, ready to type, or on your mouse. And you know what? Your mouse is now like 4 inches closer to your keyboard.
Funny story. I have not moved my mouse pad or my mouse.
Okay, yeah. So you need to bring that in. So you're not,
all right. I'm doing it right now. Yeah, okay, sliding the mouse pad over.
You need to bring it in.
Okay, bring it in. Okay,
yeah. So because it's the 10 keyless is all about ergonomics, right? You're making your keyboard shorter, bringing your mouse in closer. And plus, who uses the numpad anymore? Like, seriously, like, are you entering a lot of values into an Excel spreadsheet?
Yes. So I may have made mention that timesheets are a big part of my daily life now. So I went to do my timesheets before this podcast, and I'm like, oh, I don't have those numbers anymore. So okay, who's the asshole now, Paul?
I am apparently. But you still have you have numbers on your keyboard. Yeah. They're not in that 10 key arrangement, but it's a small price to play. A small price to pay. I can't. One more time.
Proud of you.
Small.
Leave that in. Leave it all in. Leave everything in.
The show is the show.
The show is the show.
It's a small price to pay to have your mouse closer, I think. But to each his own. To each his own.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a nice. It's not a gamer quality mouse pad, but it is a textured fabric mouse pad. I have moved it closer to my keyboard, but I still find myself kind of leaving my mouse. It's kind of like how, how people lose an arm and they feel like where their arm used to be. I feel like my mouse knows where my keyboard used to be, and I'm having a hard time getting it closer to my keyboard.
Just, you have to, you're going to have to get used to it, but, hopefully you'll end up enjoying it. I don't think I could go back to a 10-keyed keyboard. I'm pretty happy with my 10-keyless.
I am now. And the other interesting thing is, because this is the world we live in now, is of course the keyboard lights up.
Yes, of course.
I now have 5 discrete programs on my computer that all run services for different RGB LEDs in my computer. So let me run that down for you. So I've got the motherboard RGB control software, which controls the onboard LEDs of the motherboard and anything plugged into the headers, which is my my water pump and my CPU block that doesn't light up. There is technically a separate lighting control for my RAM that has RGBs, but that is now being controlled by the motherboard. I have an RGB controller for my fans that relies on Corsair software. I have a separate program for my mouse that also lights up but also has other functionality, and now I've got a program for my keyboard.
Excuse me. All right.
Listen,
I'm fine.
I didn't choose this life. It chose me.
Yeah. I have exactly one thing in my life that lights up. It's my keyboard, it's backlit, and it's a tasteful white.
Yeah, so...
It doesn't... There's no rainbows, there's no ripple effects, there's no...
Well, see, that's just it. So this keyboard has 3 profiles for colors that you could program. And all the defaults were rainbow, and I don't want rainbow. So I had to download the software and install it, which, again, runs as a service because, we haven't evolved past terminate, stay resident programs. And, I had to open it up and change the default profile to white, save that profile, sync it, then I could quit the program, and I'm hoping that on a reboot that persists.
But it looks like white.
Yeah, it looks like so far that it will, because after the first time I did this, I didn't quote-unquote sync it with the onboard profiles, and when I closed the program, it went back to all the defaults. This time I got it to stick, so I'm thinking that it will stick from here on out. Anyway, all right. So there's a couple other topics I want to hit tonight, and you're critical to both of them. So, all right, tell me about this next thing, because if it's what I think it is, your mother and I are very disappointed in you.
So this is a little bit of Battle Jacket follow up, and also a help a big helping of shame. I'm gonna kind of let my Battle Jacket sit for a bit while I got some more patches. And this last weekend, I'm like, you know what? I am going to sew a patch on my Battle Jacket. And I sat down and I picked my patch, and I safety pinned it on so it wouldn't move, and I knew where it was. And then I proceeded to try to sew this patch on, and it did not go well. First, I couldn't remember how to thread a needle, and I finally figured that out, and I was going. The first thing that happened was I was sewing through, and then I realized that I had not pulled one of my stitches completely tight, so I had a big kind of loop in the inside of my jacket that wasn't going to work. I was going to catch on something and rip out. So I stopped and I cut out all the threads, and I went to start over, and then the thread broke, and I had to pull all the stuff out and start over. I had a case where, when you first thread the needle, you put up like a knot on the end of the thread and you pull it through until the knot catches. Well, I had a case where the knot pulled through and then the whole thing came unraveled. And then the final straw was I was sewing through, and then I realized that I had accidentally pulled, I kind of had folded my Battle Jacket through and stuck my needle through too much denim. So I kind of sewed the patch on. It was bad. So I decided after 4 or 5 failed attempts, I was done. I was frustrated. I stopped, and I ordered some fabric glue. I have not used it yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm just going to glue some patches on.
So I guess my question to you would be, if you're going to be a quitter, what's wrong with just hot glue?
Hot glue would be fine, but they sell both permanent and non-permanent fabric glues, and I guess they just work better for taking two pieces of fabric and making them one piece of fabric. So a big bottle was not that expensive. It was only like $6. Amazon delivered it the next day, and it's just sitting with the rest of my stuff, waiting for me to accept all of my shame and failure and just glue some patches on. Yeah, it's just, I had such a good run for such a long time, and then I stopped, and I just had a really bad day sewing. So I don't know whether I'll try again to see whether I can get going and make some progress. But
well, how many more patches do you have to go?
I have 3 that I own that I'm going to put on. In fact, I ordered another patch today. I think I mentioned before, like one of my first like metal shows got canceled, and I told myself that, a lot of these artists, they don't make a lot of, like, it's not pop music, right? This is not Taylor Swift selling out, arenas. These are smaller bands. They rely a lot on tour income. So I told myself that anytime a tour, like a show, would get canceled, I was going to take that money I spent on the ticket and go to the band's website and buy some merch. So I did that today. I bought a t-shirt and a patch. So, excuse me. So that'll be coming soon. So, there'll be 4 that I have to get on there. Obviously now I have a little bit more time, turns out, as these shows will get canceled. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. Sewing's hard, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Okay. I mean, you tried, right? You tried, and you did your thing, and I get it. I totally get it, man.
Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I just want the patches on, and I don't want to fight with it anymore.
I get it. Okay. Well, I'm hoping that you still try. Let's put it that way. But if you got to do what you got to do to finish this thing out, because I'm anxious to see it in its completed form. So I'm confident that it'll still look good no matter what you do.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, that's good, because we hadn't heard about the battle jacket in a while. Okay, one last thing to kind of cap the episode off today. I was browsing the internet, and I saw a reference to a particular comic book that I know of, but I need your help. I need your help, because you're obviously a big comic book person, and I am not. We've talked about that before. Not going to rehash it now. But I seem to recall from my youth, there was a guy, another kid that I knew that was very into comic books. And I remember that this was like a big event for him. And like, I think I didn't fully grasp what it was, but now years later, I think I finally understand. So I'm sure you're familiar with the Batman comic, A Death in the Family, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So explain to our listeners what A Death in the Family was.
I did a little bit of homework to remember the dates. The Death in the Family was actually a very short story arc. It was only 4 issues. They came out towards the end of 1988. Spoiler alert, if you can't tell from the title, it does involve a death of a very important character in the Batman universe. If you don't want spoilers, just stop now. So what had kind of happened in the Batman universe was the original Robin, Dick Grayson, was kind of grown up and full of angst, and kind of stepped out of Batman's shadows and became his own crime-fighting superhero, Nightwing. So, Bruce Wayne, being the broken human that he is, he found another young kid, a kid named Jason Todd, to become the next Robin. And the Death in the Family, the main story arc of that is basically the Joker capturing, torturing, and ultimately killing Jason Todd. It was, I remember it being very controversial. I don't think I read it when it first came out, but I have read it, and I do remember kind of the hype, because like it was one of those times where like literally like comic books were being talked about on the 6 o'clock news. Like it was being picked up by all the major networks, and like, hey, like they're gonna kill off Robin. You know, that fourth issue has a very iconic cover where it's a very simple, it's just, you know, a black background, and in the corner you have you know, Batman holding the body of Jason Todd in his arms, kind of on his knees. Now the comic is also weird because it involves let's see if I can find it in the Wikipedia article. Yeah, so the Joker becomes Iran's representative at the United Nations, and then tries to kill a bunch of people there, and it gets really kind of hokey, and Superman comes in and saves the day. So that part aside, it gets weird. The main part of the story is the death of Jason Todd. Now, my question is, how did this kind of come back up into your you know, field of view?
So I was speaking to a customer about superhero. Like we were just kind of shooting the breeze, and he had mentioned that he was a big Batman fan, and I immediately thought of you because I know that outside of Voltron, you are a big Batman fan.
I am. And
he was explaining to me that apparently he has some sort of limited edition or signed copy of A Death in the Family, and that triggered me a little bit because I very distinctly remember, without even having to Google the image of the cover you mentioned, what that cover was. Because the kid that lived down the street from where my grandparents lived had that comic. And I didn't read it, but I just remember that he was like super excited about it. And he was a couple years older than me. And I just remember him like being really, really pumped about it. And so when the person that I was working with this week told me about that, I went back and I looked into it. And I started reading a little bit about what the storyline was, and that led me down a rabbit hole that, you know, based on the way that comics worked, at least back then, is that apparently this was like a reader poll, right, about whether he was going to live or going to die.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I don't remember. I mean, now that you mentioned that yes. Oh, here it is, right there. Yeah. The editor conceived of letting fans decide his fate, leading to the creation of the storyline.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically you
could call in and vote.
Right. This was before the internet, right? So there was like a call-in line where you could basically dial one number and it would record your phone call, and each call cost 50 cents, which, that's pretty expensive in, you know, $1988 for a phone call. But each call was 50 cents, and depending on who got the most votes, and apparently it was like a margin of like less than 100 votes versus live or die. So I started reading that today, and it turns out that they had made two editions of the comic. Like they didn't finish the edition where he lived, but like they had made just enough that if it came down to, you know, that one winning, they could finish it and get it published in time for it to come out. So the reason I bring all this up was it led me down a rabbit hole of kind of reading about Batman comics, because as I understand it, you know, ever since that particular issue, Batman hasn't really had a sidekick.
That's true. And like, I think one of the interesting things is Jason Todd has stayed dead. Right? Comic books are always notorious for restarting storylines and bringing characters back from the dead. Jason Todd has stayed dead. Now, there has been other Robins. The current one now is Damian Knight, which is Damian Wayne, which is Bruce Wayne's son. And that's very complicated.
So let me stop you there. So this is where things go off the rails for me, because again, I'm not a big comic book person. So maybe this is like super simple to people who are quote unquote in the lifestyle. But I started reading this, and it's like every other Robin that has been in Batman's life has gone on to like been like another superhero, right? Like like Red Hood or Nightwing or and like they're all super violent, which is like what Batman isn't. Right? Is that
they take on different aspects of his personality and different different you're absolutely right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, now to further complicate things, and I specifically called this out in the show notes this week, is it led me to a topic in the DC Comics universe called Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I started to read about it, and I just closed my browser tab because I do not understand what's happening.
So honestly, Crisis on Infinite Earths is a storyline that I managed to avoid completely. I've read like Flashpoint, but I've never read Crisis on Infinite Earths. Actually, I may, now that you bring this up, I actually may go back and read it. But like one of the interesting things about, well, I mean, it's comics, right? Like comics get weird. And they're trying to sell as many comics as they possibly can. So they branch out into alternate universes and alternate stories. And like multiple Earths has always been part of the kind of the DC canon. If you remember, I don't know how good the marketing was. I know it got me. When was that? It was DC, the New 52. In 2011, that's right. In 2011, DC kind of did a big reboot and then relaunched all of their lines, all new number ones, all new storylines. And that whole thing was called the New 52. And that kind of references to, they did 52 series, but there's always been like 52 Earths, 52 different universes, all having their own, their own unique Earth and kind of variations on the heroes and the people. And then, you get the superheroes like the Flash who can move between those Earths because the Flash is overpowered. But Crisis on Infinite Earths, I know it's bonkers. Like it's just way out there. I know that in the, there's a bunch of shows that are on the CW, a bunch of DC shows like The Flash and Supergirl and what are the other ones? Oh, Arrow, because it's called the Arrowverse because Arrow was first. And there's another show I can't remember. Another one in that series, and they did kind of their own take on Crisis of Infinite Earths, but I gave up on those shows because they're just not very good. But I probably will sit down and read this. I am one of like probably 200 people that actually has a subscription to DCUniverse.com. Now, are you aware of this service, Drew?
No, I'm not.
No. Why would you be? Because it's only for super nerds. It's not worth it. It's not a good service. The app is bad. The website is bad. A lot of the content is bad. But what DC Universe has is they have some original DC programming. They have a show called Titans, which it's been for 2 seasons. It's kind of a retelling of the Teen Titans story, which is all basically it's a collection of sidekicks. The main character is Dick Grayson, obviously, the ex-Robin. They have a show called Doom Patrol, which follows this bizarre set of superheroes who are really just kind of broken people inside. They did a Harley Quinn animated series that just kind of wrapped up, and that's really good. I really enjoyed that. But they have a bunch of DC's back catalog in comic books, so you can go and read the all the storylines and different comics. And I've been enjoying going through and picking up storylines and rereading those. If anyone out there who's kind of wants to read a very good modern, dark, gritty Batman tale that's mostly focuses on not so much on beating people up, but Batman being, the world's greatest detective. I think you could do a lot worse than the Court of Owls series, which is actually, I believe, the first. I think it was Batman #1 when they rebooted the New 52 and came out in 2011. I can find that here. Court. If I could type correctly. Court of Owls. Let's see if their search is any good. Storylines 44. Batman Court of Owls. Yep, it was Batman the 2011 series, Batman #1 through 7, and then it actually continued for a few more episodes, a few more issues after that. But I don't know a lot about Crisis on Infinite Earths. If I could say Earth correctly, that would be helpful too.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is that when I started reading about it, it sounds like that. Kind of like what you said, that it was a chance to reboot, and it changed a bunch of stories that had already happened. So it was starting over with a bunch of things or something. I don't know.
That is very, very common in comic books is, you get, they try to have all of these different storylines kind of come together and heroes coming in and out of different comic books and crossover events. But much like if you even consider the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Every movie is bigger and louder and brighter, and the stakes are higher, and everything keeps ramping up. And that happens in comics too. The storylines just keep getting more bizarre, and everything keeps getting pushed to the limit. And then every decade, every 15, 20 years, they're like, what we need is a good old-fashioned reboot. Where we just tear everything down and start over, so then we can do the same thing we did again and build everything up and get crazy. So I know Crisis on Infinite Earths was definitely one of those events. The Flashpoint series was kind of one of those before, or was Flashpoint after this or not? I think it was before. Another big one was it was a Green Lantern series. Hold on. Green Lantern. Red. Was it the Red Lantern? I can't remember what the storyline is, but it involved the Red Lantern Corps, because of course there's different, there's different colors of lanterns, because of course there is. But you know what? I'm gonna find these comics on DC Universe, and I will give them a read, and I will report back how bonkers they are.
Yeah, I would be interesting to hear, because obviously it's not necessarily something that I would that I'm going to go out of my way to read, just because I don't know. It sounds fascinating, but I don't know. I feel like since I was never really into comics, I just don't know where to start. You know what I mean? I would want to start at the beginning, but it sounds like the beginning isn't the place to start.
You know what? It can be really tough, because these stories go on forever, and there's so much intertwining. DC is notorious for this, where they'll have a panel where one of the heroes references something, and if you want to know what Batman's talking about, read this issue of this other comic, right? Because they want you to buy more comics, right? They want you to go, well, I'm missing part of the story, so I better pick up, this issue. And I believe, if I remember correctly, when they rebooted the New 52, there was 4 or maybe even 5 different comic lines, all involving Batman, right? There was the Batman, there was Detective Comics, there was Batwing, there was Batwoman. I think there was even a Bat Family one. So you had to just buy so many comics to get the whole story in place. Which I think that's why sites like Comixology, right, where you can go through and buy these collected editions cheaply, or even the trade paperbacks where they collect all these issues together. I really think now it's just, you may not want to go back and read all of the comics. You want to go back and maybe read, some of the great storylines. For example, I'm still a big fan of Flashpoint, which is a really good Flash storyline where Flash goes back in time and then screws everything up. Like I mentioned, the Court of Owls is really good. Batman Death in the Family, also Death of the Family, which happened after. I think that was that was in 2011, where it spun off of that existing Death in the Family and kind of expanded on that. But again, like here, looking online, Batman Death in the Family, its story spreads. It starts in Batgirl, it goes to Catwoman, then it goes to the Batman series, Batman and Robin, Suicide Squad, back to Batman, Detective Comics, Batgirl, Batman and Robin. It's like it spreads around. Like there's no, it's because again, like they do these big overarching stories to get you to buy more comics, right?
Of course.
If you're not if DC's not your thing, what is it? Marvel Unlimited, which is basically kind of Marvel's version of this, where they have lots of Bat comics. There's lots of great storylines in there. If Civil War, the first one, not the second one, is still really good. Even and that's a storyline where it's the main story is told in 8 big issues they're just really called Marvel Civil War. And there's side stories and all the other lines. If you really want to get deep into it, you can read 200 different comics to get the full story. But you can get a really, really good, concise, well-written story in 8 issues. Another line that I really enjoy from there is, I think it's just called The Visions, which is about...
we've talked about this, yeah.
Yeah, about the Vision trying to have a normal family life. That's really good as well. But it is one of those things where it's hard, it's unapproachable. I don't have a pull list anymore. A pull list is basically that when you find your local comic book shop and you give them a list of all of the issues all the series that you want, and when they get them in stock, they literally pull them off the shelf and have them so you can go and get your comics. I don't do that anymore. I do have a handful of comics that I am subscribed to via Comixology, so I'm reading some new issues, but a lot of times for me it's just really going back and exploring these old storylines, either reading them or rereading them for the first time. Comics.
All right. Woo. Yeah, well, I mean that's what I wanted to hear. So all right. Well, what do you say
I'll put some links in the doc there so we can have some good links to some comics.
Some of that sweet content.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, what do you say we cap this one off? Tell people where they can find us.
Yeah, as always, we are, I'm sure they're doing their best, and we're on the internet at doingtheirbest.com. You can find us on Twitter at doingbestpod. And you can find me on Twitter at Paul Baylor, Bahler. And where can we find you, Drew?
You can find me on Twitter at PITTFURG.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, once we're all quarantined, we can dedicate even more time to this.
Exactly. Stay safe, everyone.
All right, everybody. Take care.